Well, the real estate market is still out there, but it's hard to find a home. It's hard to find an interest rate you want to pay. So yeah, the cost of home ownership is definitely going up. It's keeping a lot of people out of the market. A lot of people don't want to move because they have a great interest rate and they'd have to move to some place where they're going to pay more money for a home and a higher interest rate. And it's really hard to talk about how homes affect our health and our well-being and our climate when people just can't find a home. Just a pure basic, getting back to basics here. So I am really excited to bring a solution to you today. Someone I've known in the industry for quite some time. So I want you to listen in today and learn more about how you can use this person's financial modeling tools and software to have a better financial proposition to get you into your better home. Stay tuned.
Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat, and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, work, and play. Join your host, Marla Esser-Close, the Green Home Coach, to learn how everyday green homes work for you, your family, and your community.
Hey, y'all, it's Marla, the Green Home Coach, and I am back on Zoom Studio. I think a lot of us are on Zoom Studio with a gentleman I have known. Oh, gosh, Kerry, I've known you a while. I'm not sure how long.
It's been over 10 years, no doubt.
I think you're right. But Kerry Langley, who I met, back when you were just getting the TCO program really going, total cost of ownership, which is something so many of us talk about, and we still have an industry that is so first-time cost oriented. And you've really kind of revolutionized how to look at it and how to talk about it. And I'm really excited for you to share what you're doing with all of our listeners out there, and for people to look at this whole process with a different outcome in their mind. So I'm thrilled to have you here to talk about it. Thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit more about you and about what you're doing.
All right, cool. Well, first of all, about me, and I'll keep it simple. I'm a math nerd. No doubt about it. I love mathematics. I don't expect everybody else to love math at the level that I do, but thank goodness I've turned it into a very satisfying career, but also I've turned it a way to help people. My formal education is in finance, and I've been in the mortgage banking business for 38 years. So it's obviously stuck. And so basically in 2000, starting in my career, going through the big housing downturn in 2008, I primarily lent money to millionaires. I had the greatest job on the planet. Everybody I did business with was super successful. They all had a big smile on their face. And we did a lot of complex financial stuff, which is just something I just love. Right. And then in 2008, the fall of 2007, the mortgage industry started to implode. And the first part that imploded was the high end, my customer. And so basically I went from rocking along to not rocking along. All right. We'll just put it that way. And so I had a dear friend of mine. I wouldn't call him a mentor, but he could be a mentor. He was a neighbor, very successful gentleman who works for Merrill Lynch. And he and I were having a conversation about this. And he said, well, his most successful clients were the ones that had a product or a service that they benefited the masses. They reached out and touched the masses. And then, as with all things in my life, the next day or 2 days later, I was presented with an opportunity. I don't call these events in my life consequences. I think there's part of a bigger plan. And with an introduction to a high performance home, I could tell you what, at this point in my career, I could tell you what Brazilian hardwood cherry floor should cost, but I couldn't spell green. I didn't know how to spell it, right? I knew nothing about it. And so these people at the Atlanta Home Builder Association, they had a joint venture with a group called South Face Institute, which had a baby. This joint venture had a baby called Earthcraft House. And Earthcraft House is a certification program. And they asked me to develop a green mortgage. All right. like I said, I didn't know how to spell green. I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. And at the time, the mortgage industry was looking for a way to keep the lights on. We weren't looking for a way to innovate. The mortgage industry doesn't innovate as a rule anyway. But at this point, we surely weren't innovating.
Right.
Our innovation was we didn't have to fire everybody today. So I started working on this piece of software. And one day I had an epiphany. They invited me to 2 training classes. One day I had an epiphany, and that epiphany was, if the way that you make a high performance home high performance is based on balancing everything in the home to get to the best end solution, why couldn't we do the same thing financially? And so I sat down and I started writing this piece of software. I don't write software. I don't write code. This is all done in Excel. I don't know where this came from. I have no idea. This wasn't part of a master plan in my mind. And I started writing this. And now I have a tool that I called TCO. I have a trademark for TCO, total cost of ownership, but I market it under a company named HomeBucks. And HomeBucks basically develops models for consumers to figure out how to live in homes they may not be able to afford, or homes they may not be able to achieve or reach. We look at everything financially in a house with a focus on, if we can find extra dollars for the same budget. And I'm not trying to stretch somebody into a house they can't afford.
Right.
My point is, if somebody can afford a $1,500 house payment or a $2,000 house payment or whatever it is, to get them the best possible house for that budget. And sometimes that is building solar into the mortgage. And sometimes it's, adding insulation, energy efficient appliances, and new windows to the mortgage. And sometimes it's, a net zero energy house. It doesn't matter. Every flavor works. And so we look at each house as an opportunity to improve something, because there's not a house that's perfect. And we try to make it where it's affordable, because the big challenge with the whole green conversation is the perception is that it's more expensive. It's not attainable. And that's hockey, right? Whatever the term is for it. Because I'll give you an example. I had a client, and this is way out there, but I had a client who is looking at, she's a real estate agent. She has a house she's marketing. First-time home buyers in her market, which is near Seattle, Washington. First-time home buyers are about $500,000. All right, they're not super cheap. And we developed a model where the buyer can put down their 3.5%. They can add solar to the house. They can drop their interest rate from 7.25% to 5 7/8, and the difference in their down payment is like $300.
Wow.
So this is not bring another 50 grand to the closing table that you're a first-time home buyer that you don't have anyway. This is, let's drop the interest rate substantially. Let's reduce the total cost of ownership. Oh, and by the way, after adding solar, after factoring in that, they're going to walk away from the closing table having a total cost of ownership that's about $350 a month less than if they'd bought the house and done nothing. So to me, if you'll take 5 minutes to read something for a second, to ask some questions, get the answers, you will end up with a significantly better opportunity to build long-term multi-generational wealth if you just think about it a little bit.
Right.
The whole process of, hey, we're going to buy a house and we're going to call somebody who we've never met before in our life, and we're going to talk to them on a Saturday afternoon, and they're going to tell me the interest rate 7.5%, and that is going to be the basis of our entire financial future is crazy. Is crazy.
I mean, it's what the biggest investment we make in our lives in most cases.
Absolutely. And that's the amount of planning is call the guy and get a pre-qual letter. That's all you need. Get a letter. Okay, wait a minute. Let's think about it just for a minute. Let's back up just a tad and let's think about this. Let's make this part of it. People spend countless hours trying to figure out, what type of refrigerator they want. And don't get me wrong, refrigerator is important. I'm a big refrigerator guy. I get it, right? But they spend countless hours. Well, we looked at these 19 refrigerator models and we came up with this one because it has an app that goes with it. But they buy their $500,000 house, and the research they do is the person gave me a pre-qual letter.
Well, I mean, how do we talk about houses? Oh, it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1,900 square feet in such and such school district. Okay. Yep. Okay. How well does the house perform? Which direction does it face? Do I have sunlight glaring in my windows? Is it comfortable? Does it have any added amenities that are going to make our lives better, easier? Is it easy to maintain? Or am I going to have to like work my tail end off every weekend to go take care of this house because it's high maintenance? And that, and sometimes those things. Maybe you're buying 100-year-old house. It's going to be high maintenance, but you want a 100-year-old house, so it's okay.
Yeah. And the part
we don't think about these things as an industry, as a culture, and it's painful.
Yeah, and the part that's crazy is unless you have a family member with a severe medical condition, asthma, COPD, whatever it is. I'm not a doctor, so I can't rattle off all the terms. But the whole point is, unless you have somebody that all you think about is that medical condition, unless that's who you are, nobody thinks about indoor health air quality unless they have a problem. Funny story. I have a daughter who is the stereotypical townie, as I call her. She lives in town. Her and her husband have a smaller home that they've renovated. The whole thing, right? They have the fire pit in the backyard. I mean, it's the whole thing.
String lights up.
She goes to Whole Foods. They eat organic food. I mean, they check all the boxes. I joke with her about it. Everywhere she goes, she has a little medical kit. Well, she has some kind of concoction with her everywhere she goes for every medical ailment. She has 2 little kids, right? They're renovating their house. I've been talking about this for 15 years. They're renovating their house 3 years ago. And she calls me up one day and she says, "Who's that guy you mentioned that can tell me about indoor air quality?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because she started thinking about it because she's got little kids.
Yep.
Right. And so it wasn't a conversation of, this is what it costs or whatever and all this stuff. And so, like I said, the little nuggets, by telling the story, the little nuggets that we plant, little seeds, they sprout every once in a while. They don't think about it to begin with, but they sure think about it, when somebody gets sick or somebody doesn't feel well or, they find a bug or whatever. So.
Well, and then the other big behavior, change in people's lives that we've seen that impacts both family, and it's a good crossroads for family and homes, is when you're starting a family.
Yeah.
And so many, people that are starting a family, that's when they start thinking about what's in their house. And do I have chemicals on the floor that the baby's going to be crawling around in? Or do my cabinets put off gassing or stuff? So they start asking these questions, especially if they're doing a renovation or painting or stuff like that. And a lot of times they don't know most times I don't think they know what to do about it. Crazy enough, there's tons of resources, some of them valid, some of them almost valid. But then you've got the same issue as like, how do we pay for it? Or do we buy a new home? And then how do we pay for it? And, as we all know, babies aren't cheap. But we make it work. But and we've got so many families young families, starter families that are trying to find where they're living. And it seems like they're the ones that are being impacted at a very great rate with all this housing crisis that we're going through.
Right.
Maybe that's an opportune place to help them understand how they can use their dollar more. It's like my mother-in-law. I have never seen a woman that could spend a penny in so many ways. That woman could do more with a penny than anybody I'd ever met in my life. And they lived on a modest income with her husband was a mechanic, and they had a house, a condo with the lake, a boat. But she knew how to use her money well.
Yeah. Well, funny story when you talk about that. My mom is 90. I guess she's 91. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She's been around for a while. And my parents got divorced when I was very young. And my mom worked for the federal government for 40 years, auditing travel expense reports, right? For 40 years. My God, would that make you crazy? Right. But the point is, she told me when she got that job, when we were little, she bought a package of 12 paper bags, and she used those 12 paper bags for 40 years, that same package of 12 paper bags. I'd throw the bag away every day, right? But she brought them home. She folded them up, brought them home. She put them back in the pantry that we had in our house. I don't know what she did, before we lived in that house, because it really didn't register to me. But, and that is, even though that's a little bit extreme on the miserly side, but the whole point is, I don't know what it would have cost if she bought, $1 of paper bags every week, or I guess that'd be every 2 weeks if it was 15, maybe 3. But anyway, but the point is, people don't look at it that way. And like we were talking about earlier, you can either buy assets that depreciate, or you can buy stuff that depreciates, or you can buy assets that appreciate. And I'm a firm believer in one real simple mantra, and this is what I push when I'm working with my clients, is you go to work every day you work hard, you bring home whatever you bring home, and you got a choice. You can either make your landlord rich or you can make yourself rich. And if you're going to make yourself rich, let's figure out the way to do that the most efficient way possible. So that's what we do with HomeBucks is we show the consumer, first of all, you should be buying something versus letting somebody else get rich off your back. That's number one. But number two is if you're going to buy something, let's not have a game plan of, well, we're going to get there when we get there. We need to have a game plan of at some point when we decide that we want to retire or quit working or whatever, we're at a point where we can. And a lot of people who are 30 years old don't want to talk about their retirement. I don't sell IRAs. I don't sell 401ks. I don't sell any of that stuff. But I can surely show you how to reduce the cost of owning your house a ton. And if we can do that, why not? Why wouldn't we? So,
right. I mean, you're just leaving money on the table otherwise.
Well, somebody else is getting rich. You can decide, you or somebody else. It's because somebody's going to get your money. Somebody.
As successful real estate and home professionals, you know that education and information are key to your expertise. How can you help your clients connect what's really important to them with your homes? My How to Sell the Value of Green Homes and Features workshop will teach you and your team the basics of green, healthier, high-performance homes. Learn the benefits of healthier, green, and high-performance homes and features and how they tie to the health, safety, and comfort benefits our clients expect. Click the link below to book your workshop today. So explain to us kind of at a high level how this model works, how this whole process works.
Well, it's real simple. In my mind, anyway, it's real simple.
I was going to say, what? To you, Mr. Financial Nerd.
Yeah, that's right. I wear that badge with a whole lot of courage, I guess is the right word. But anyway, how does the model work? It's simple and it's complex. But basically what it does is we take a look at everything. We look at the cost, the price of the house. We look at how the contract is written, how the performance of the home is today, because we would, in an ideal world, have everybody get an energy audit. That is unrealistic. I get it. But the whole point is there may be some opportunities there, but we gather all the data. And most lenders, right, because I'll compare myself to everybody else, most lenders are looking to provide the consumer with three things. Here's your down payment. And when I say down payment, your down payment and your closing costs. So your cash at closing. Here's your investment in the property. Here's your monthly payment, and here's your interest rate, right? That's what they look to give them. And this is the entire mortgage industry. 400,000 people that do this every day, right? Our model is different. Our model takes a look at everything, and we look at total cost of ownership. And funny thing is, back when you and I first met, that was enough for me, because I was sitting on this mountaintop where I was thinking, I'm the smartest person in the room, and total cost of ownership should mean something to everybody.
Doesn't.
And it only took 15 years for me to figure out that it didn't. But that's right, like bang your head on a wall. But I went to a conference this year a solar industry conference, and I've never been a fan of solar. I'll be the first one to tell you I haven't, because of the financial side, not because I like solar panels or don't like solar panels, or not because I'm predisposed to think green or renewable or not. I just had a problem with them financially. That's all. And I went to this conference called SolarCon, and there were a bunch of crazy solar people there, and it was great. Right, I had a good time, but I was enlightened on to the financial modeling used in the solar industry, and I said, what would happen if I plugged that into my software? And it completed the picture. It was the piece I was missing, because
that makes sense.
Yeah, I was predisposed to have an attitude about it, and that was a mistake that I made. And so I plugged that into it, and at the same time, I was able to change the way my model is working so that now it still generates a lower total cost of ownership. It still does, but it also drives the top line number that everybody wants to look at. That's interest rate. It drives that down as a focus. And so today, somebody wants to buy a house. I talk to them, whether it's an FHA loan with 3.5% down or $1 million house with 50% down. It doesn't matter where you are in that spectrum. I talked to somebody today, and I show them three options. And the options I showed them are current interest rates today are in the 7.5, whatever they are. They're trying to get to 8 really hard, but it's in the 7s. And I show them three different options. I say, we can do nothing in the house, and you can forget you ever met me, and you can pay 7.5% for the rest of your life until you pay 10 grand to refinance it down the road. That's number one, option number one. Option number two is let's beat up on just the financial piece, because I can beat up on the financial piece. I can probably optimize. I use the word manipulate, but some people think that's negative. So I can optimize the numbers, and I can probably get anybody down, I don't know, a quarter, a 0.5% in their interest rate, right?
Okay.
It's going to save you a little bit of money. It's not going to change your life. And so we can do that. Or looking at it from a holistic standpoint and looking at it from a total cost of ownership, I can drive down your interest rate about 1 to 1.5%, as long as we do some good work in the energy efficiency piece. You can never get the benefit of adding solar panels to your house solely that I can get if I optimize all of it together. And so that's what I do, is I take all these models and I say, while we're doing it, let's just look at all of it. And some people go, well, I don't want solar. I go, well, that's fine. I don't care if you want solar or not. My job is to show you the models. And I'm kind of sitting there going, but and this is a funny thing, because I built this into the software because a real estate agent in Dallas, Texas asked me this question. He said, okay, so you build this crazy model. What happens with that money? What happens with the $500 a month that somebody's saving? Right. And I said, I don't know why. What do you see? Well, in Texas, it's a big deal that you build equity in the property, because the laws are such that you can't really get a cash out refinance easily like you may be able to in other states. So they said it's a big deal to build equity in Texas, right? So I said, well, let me just plug it in. So I plugged in the total cost of ownership savings into paying the mortgage off faster. And I show customers on a regular basis, if you pay what you would pay if you never met Kerry Langley, using my model, it'll pay your loan off 10, 12, 15 years earlier.
Wow.
Saving people literally. I had a guy that I did a deal
thousands and thousands.
I had a guy that I did a deal for in California, $900,000. We showed him
interest rates
by paying the same payment as if he'd never met me. No additional down payment, no pay an extra payment and pay your loan off in 19 years. None of that. Just the savings we modeled. We're going to save you $900,000. And here's the best part. And they didn't buy that house because the seller wouldn't come down $30,000 on the price. And it was a $2 million house. You kind of sit there and go, $30,000 on a $2 million house, and I showed you how to save $900,000. I would think the response would be, can I buy 2 of those? That's what I would think. I don't know.
Maybe that's why they can afford a $2 million house.
Yeah, I guess. Well, this guy was a hotshot attorney. So what are you going to do?
So when you look at this final model, you're factoring in renewable energy efficiency practices, other practices that are going to impact the budget, that total budget, the cost to run the home, basically. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's so funny because somebody asked me this yesterday about what all does my software look at? And I said, oh my goodness, what a terrible question to ask me, because I'm going to actually tell you. It looks at everything you could think of, even stuff people don't think of. Like, when it comes to that. But also, I had a builder several years ago in Syracuse, New York, say she was building net zero energy houses, and she was saying, most of my customers do not drive EVs, electrical vehicles. I said, okay. She goes, I would like to encourage them to. She was a hardcore, true to the core advocate. And I said, okay. So we added in the cost of a high-speed charger to the house. Okay. These houses are about $400,000, and I think she told me the cost of high-speed charger was like $2,500. I'm just pulling numbers off the top of my head. And so I built into the software, what is it if we have enough capacity, because the homes had solar, if the homes have enough capacity to charge the vehicle and operate the property, what does that do to their total cost of ownership? Because once again, I'm a TCO guy, right? And so we eliminated the cost. We assumed a driving thing. We did all the stuff that you would normally do. We plugged into it, and it probably reduced the total cost of ownership another $200. All right. So you sit there and you go, okay, so we plugged that into it. Not that I care if somebody wants to have an EV or not. People are going to do what they're going to do. But the point is, I'll give you an example. My wife is the most predisposed to be green person on the planet. All right. She's hardcore about don't tell me what to do. Right. And so I showed her this model, right? And she said, well, we probably ought to have an EV for around town. So the first thing out of her mouth is battery schmattery. I don't want to play that game. And the second thing is it's going to save us, $4,000 a year to own this car. Are you kidding?
EVs save you so much on maintenance.
And so the whole point of it is a lot of people make it you're right, I'm wrong. And a lot of people make it a political thing and all this nonsense. But the whole point of it, and the technology is going to get a lot better, and they're going to get a lot more affordable and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. They already
But
are starting to.
yeah, but today, if you want to know that information, my software can give you the information, right? I don't have a judgment. I just say, let's show you how we can reduce. That doesn't have any impact on qualifying for a loan or anything like that. Actually, a little bit of a negative if you're going to spend $2,000 because that's like, $15 a month. But it is something that we can do. We can make it as holistic as somebody wants to look at. And it's amazing what you do. Some stuff pays for itself. Some stuff doesn't pay for itself. But holistically, if you factor in a lower interest rate, it always is a better move. Always. I mean, I've done net zero houses that people spent $40,000 or $50,000 on the HVAC system to get where they wanted to get to. And by driving down the whole picture, it was always a better deal.
So how do you get lower interest rates before we start wrapping up?
Like I told you earlier, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
But I mean, so is it like actually going after products that have lower interest rates and factoring those in, or things, special qualifications, or? No,
what I basically do is I look at every way that a consumer could finance anything, right? So like today, you're going to go buy a house, right? And you buy a house and you buy a $300,000 house, you put down $50,000 and you get your 7.5% mortgage, right? And then you decide, oh, well, we need to get a new HVAC that's going to cost $10,000. And we go to Home Depot, and Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever the store is you want to go to. And they say, oh, buy here, pay here, whatever they say. And we can put you into this, what I call point of sale financing tool, right? Mm-hmm. And the point of sale financing tool, it's $129 a month and it's 15% interest, right? And they say, well, I don't want to pay 50%. That's okay. We got a deal. We're going to make that interest rate 4%. Well, how do they make that interest rate 4%? They throw some fees at it, right? And they build it all into it. Kind of like how do you get 0% interest rate on car loans? It's not because the car dealers like you. It's because they figured out a way to manipulate the interest rate, right? Which is fine, right? Anyway, so we do is we take a look at every bit of that. And once again, it sounds simplistic and it sounds very repetitive that I say this, but when you look at all of it together, then you can drive it into it. Yeah, because most people, and this is one that probably paints a picture probably better than most, is most people, let's say, once again, back to this $300,000 person, and they say, oh, we're going to negotiate the heck out of this deal. We're going to get this thing down to 290, right? And they do, and they pay 7.5% forever. In most cases, they would be smarter to pay 300 and optimize the interest rate. So if you take the same dollars and put them all on the table and put them in the brown paper bag that my mom has and shake them up and dump them on the table, and most people don't have the time. I've probably eaten up 18 million legal pads in my life. Thank goodness I like to plant trees. And so now I have something that doesn't use the legal pads because I could do everything my software does. I could do it on a legal pad, right? Okay. It would take me forever. Yeah, my software, like I mentioned to you, can do 300 billion different iterations of how you finance something in about a half a second. I'll take that choice. And I don't need 300 billion for Marla, and your husband. I don't need 300 billion. But the whole point is it's got that much flexibility to it. Right. So there's not a solution we can't fix. It's totally cool. It is so much fun. I giggle about how cool it is sometimes when I mess with it. So.
So where do we send people to learn more about this?
The best place to send people is there's a website that I own that is called greenhomesmatter.com. Greenhomesmatter.com is the coolest website because it has a picture of one of my grandchildren on the front of it. But if you go to greenhomesmatter.com, up in the menu on the right-hand side of the website, there's a link that says HomeBucks. And if you just click on HomeBucks, it'll give you that website. Will change a little bit over the weekend because it's getting updated because somebody said, well, your website doesn't say this. And I'm going, okay, it will say
nobody
more.
Else will ever know because they'll just go there.
That's exactly right. But it's greenhomesmatter.com is my primary website and HomeBucks is on there.
And can people also contact you through that website?
They can either that or they can send an email to Kerry at thehomebuckscompany.com. And it's just THEHOMEBUCKS company.com.
Company spelled out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're going to give me lots of letters to type.
It is. Or they can just go to Green Homes Matter. There's an email that's Kerry at greenhomesmatter.com. They all go to the same place. Everything comes into my Mac, or my iPhone. Either way,
there you go. Well, I am so grateful that you have come onto the show and given us this overview and this I mean, it's almost like magic. So,
Well, it's funny you say that because I had a real estate agent say to me, this is like magic. And I said, yeah.
pure
So actually,
freaking magic.
I actually own a URL that's TCO Magic, but there's nothing on there. So it is. I was talking to this organization, this group of green designated realtors, and I said, it's voodoo magic.
There you go.
But it is. It's financial magic. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, y'all. Check out the magic, especially if you're in the home buying market. See how Kerry and his magic tool can help you out. Kerry, thank you. It is so good to reconnect with you and to learn about this new magic that you've added to all your smartness. And everybody out there, have a great green day, and we'll see you next time.
That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Want more? Join the Love Your Everyday Green Home private Facebook group for more resources and behind-the-scenes insights. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.